This is something I discovered about 2 years ago. Not anything I've read, seen anybody else talk about. Well, I hope everything is going well in your world today. I want to talk to you about pruning Primocane blackberries. This will be specific to Primocane blackberries. These are primearkfreedom blackberries, but this advice probably will apply to all Primocane blackberries, although I'm not sure of that. But it's information that you need to know, and it's observations that you need to make on your Primocane blackberries to see if it fits your variety. Again, primearkfreedom berries right here. And your berries may be a prime Jim, prime Jan, it may be Primark 45, may be Traveler. Several different of the Primocane fruiting blackberries, and that's again what we're talking about, Primocane fruiting blackberries. And these are all Primocanes. These are all canes that came up this year, and obviously they're in containers. Now this here on the end is a Ouachita that is not a Primark Freedom, but the rest of them in these blue tubs are. All these again came up this year, this year's canes. How do I deal with this year's canes? I watched a video yesterday that just floored me. A woman basically said, just in the fall, just mow your Primocanes to the ground. And she was talking about Primocane blackberries. She said, mow your Primocanes to the ground and then you're done. And I thought, what in the world is she talking about? Now, what will Primocanes do? Primocanes give you two crops. So these berries will crop this year, first year canes popping up and cropping the first year. That's why they're special, that's why they're different, that's why they were developed by the University of Arkansas. First year fruiting canes. Up until the Primark series of blackberries came out, as far as I know, no blackberry fruited the first year. So it was just a landmark in blackberry production and development. And thank you, Dr. Clark, for doing that, and all his associates. Again, they fruit 2 times. They'll fruit this year, brand new canes come up 5-6 foot long, and will fruit this year, this summer, all the way through fall. They call them fall bearing, but for me in hot Texas, it's more of an ever bearing. They'll start producing in the next 30 days maybe. Some of them are producing now, but I mean the majority of them will start producing in July, let's say, and mid-July. And when it gets real hot, then they will slow down and or stop until you hit some days that aren't so hot, and then they will pick back up and will fruit this year. That's my point. I will get a lot of fruit this year, but the majority of the fruit will come, at least in my experience, the majority of the fruit will come next spring on these same canes. So why in the world would anybody want to mow down their Primocanes? I mean, that's like me coming through here with a hedge clipper and just cutting these off at the tops of these tubs and just waiting on next year for them to produce when I can get 2 crops out of them. Now, she followed her statement of mow them down and you're done. She did follow that with, unless you want 2 crops. Well, who doesn't want 2 crops? So her theory was to, after they do their summer fruiting, like these are fixing to do, to mow them down, and then you're good. Well, but all these canes will also produce fruit next spring. In fact, in my experience, they produce more berries in the spring. So let me show you what I'm doing. Certainly not going to mow these down, and let me show you what I'm doing to get the very most you can out of my berries. This is something I discovered about 2 years ago. Not anything I've read, seen anybody else talk about, except I did do a video on it last year, and I just got asked about it, and it was still confusing to someone, so let me try to explain what I'm talking about. So, first year canes come up, Primocane variety only. First year canes come up on these Primark Freedoms, and what I used to do was, when we get, that's a place where I pruned it, I pinched it off right there. Can't see it probably. Pinched it off right there. And what it's done is grow 2 huge laterals there. And it's grown, there's another one there. And what I used to do for the past several years, come in here at about 18 inches, 16, 18 inches, and I would prune these laterals off. And I thought that is encouraging new laterals on these laterals, which is true, exactly true. But I found out I was missing out on so many berries. So last year, I let the laterals grow until they terminated and started fruiting. And I noticed last year that all my summer berries, just about all, were making on the laterals. We're making on the terminal ends of the laterals. See those blooms? That's going to be a blackberry. That is going to be a bunch of blackberries, about 6 or 8 of them right there. So had I pruned that off, that lateral, I don't know if you can see that or not, that lateral is about 2 feet long. Had I pruned it off like I normally did, I would have taken it off right there and I would have lost all those blackberries up on top. So I'm finding in the summertime berries, almost all of them are making on the lateral terminal ends, the very ends of these laterals. And those laterals are pretty short, only about 12 inches long. And there you go with all the berries. So what I am doing, and you can take it for good advice, or you can take it for whatever, or you can do some experiments and have, if you got 10 plants, do 3 or 4 of them like this, do 5 of them like this, do all of them like this. Entirely up to you. I'm letting my laterals grow until they just get ridiculous and out of, unmanageable, or until they terminate and start growing berries. Until they terminate and start growing berries. That's what those are. Blooms, buds, berries. Now when they terminate and grow berries, I'll harvest the berries in probably 3 weeks or so. These berries should be ready. I'll harvest those and then go from there. Here again is a lateral. That lateral is almost 3 feet long, and it's making blooms mainly at the terminal end, mainly at the very butt end of it, the top growth. But it's also this one, and don't see that very often, but this one is also making some blooms 8 inches, 10 inches below the terminal end. So it does happen, but again, a 3 foot long cane, normally I would have come in here and cut that off. In years past, I would have come in here and cut that off, and I would have lost all those berries. All that production, because I was pruning my lateral branches. Now this one here is a cane. So even the canes coming up out of the soil, even the canes are making berries mainly on the terminal ends. So I think that's a characteristic of these. It may be just primearkfreedoms, it may be primocanes. So watch your terminal ends for blooms. This is another cane. It's a very small one. It's not very big, hasn't matured, and may not get any bigger. Probably won't since it's terminating right there. But they're growing on the terminal ends. Again, a terminal end got buds and blooms. Okay? Buds and blooms. Now let me be quick to say that if they get up to my wire, my trellis wire, and if you don't have a trellis, you need one, and this is the best one, the easiest, quickest, simplest, cheapest thing you could build or buy. So I'll put a video up in the top corner or at the end of this video to show you how to build it. But what I do, if they reach the top of my wire, I go ahead and pinch that off. I pinch that off. Now you can propagate, if it's big enough, you can propagate that or you can leave it alone. But that will now start growing laterals. I do want to encourage lateral growth, and I'm not going to let one get 6 feet, 7, 8, 10 feet long, hoping it will get some berries on the terminal end. No, I'm going to go ahead and nip it, prune it, pinch it, hoping to encourage laterals that will produce those berries. So yes, on the canes coming up, there's one right there I didn't get yet. On the canes coming up, when they get up to that wire, maybe just a little above the wire, I'm going to pinch that off. Now, after you pick these late berries, these summer berries off your lateral canes, what to do then? Well, I really don't know, but I think I'm going to go ahead because if they've already made the berries on the terminal ends, they're not going to make any more berries there probably. I don't see that happening. So what I'll do is come right back behind where the berry was, and I'll prune that off. That will encourage lateral growth and maybe encourage a bunch of fall berries that come off from where I've pruned that particular lateral. So all these, again, you can see where that's at a fork, where that has lateral and come up, and there's buds there. I'm going to get berries right there. I'm going to get one berry down here close to the bottom where my thumb is, and I got 4 or 5 up there. It's just, that's what I've found that these Primark Freedoms do. So if I hate to give advice and then it'd be bad advice, but I would suggest that you prune your berries at the top of wherever you want to keep them manageable. And I do suggest you keep them manageable. Don't let them get too tall. Mine are about probably 4 feet tall. When they get about 4 feet is where I prune them. Some of the books say prune Primark Freedoms at 12 inches tall, and I don't get it. I don't understand that at all. So I've never even tried it. But after they fruit, like this one, terminated right there, starts a lateral, and already I can see signs of blooms right there. So once they fruit, I pick the fruit, and then I think that lateral, the tip of that lateral, the terminal end of that lateral is going to be done. So that's where I'm going to, right behind where it fruited, I'll prune it, and then that lateral should make more laterals, and then should get you what you need for next year, next spring. So don't mow. You can't. I get so many people say, so should I mow my canes down? Should I prune all my canes out? And I say, no. If they're dead, yes. I've already taken out all my dead canes out of these, and as you can see, they look really, really nice. And something else I want to show you as to why you should prune lower, and that is, let me find a good example of it. There's plenty of examples, but these are extreme examples. I prune these at about 4 feet tall. Prune that one at about 4 feet, just above the wire here. Just above, about 3 or 4 inches above the wire. Same way with, there's one that I hadn't pruned yet. Okay, I'll get you right now in a minute. But what it's done, the reason I say prune at the wire is because these laterals, especially if you're going to let them grow longer than you normally would, simply because you want to try to get some berries off of them, those laterals are going to get tall. So if you prune this at 4 feet, you may get a 6-foot blackberry easily. These on the other side there, let me come around to this side, because these are definitely over my head. Now I'm in a container, so they're not 8 feet tall or anything, but they're 2 feet taller than where I pinched it off. That's the original pinch off right there. So they've gotten much taller than that. So that's why I say prune them low as you can, and still get them close enough to the wire to be able to tie them to the wire. And if you don't have a tape tying machines, dadgum you should. That would just make your life so much easier. But I'll let them get high enough, tall enough to where they can be tied to the wire if necessary. Some of them you don't have to, but most of them you do. I'll let them get tall enough to be able to prune, tie to the wire, and then let the laterals grow until I see whether or not they're going to produce fruit. Now, if these laterals weren't producing fruit after they got long and kind of out of control, going off and visit their neighbor in the neighboring pot, getting way over here, something like that, then I'd probably prune them off. But if I see any evidence of a bloom, like I do right there, and like I do right there, if I see any evidence of a bloom, first of all, it's probably stopped its growth as far as length, and for that reason, I don't need to do anything. I don't have to prune it because it's not going to go any crazier than it is right now. When I pick those fruits, when I pick those berries, I will just pinch that off right there behind the berries, and then this lateral that's coming off this cane this lateral will start making laterals. You can see they kind of starting to make some laterals right now. See a little bit there. Those will get full, and you know, I hope I've been clear. And again, maybe something you just want to experiment with. Now, see, these are some early blooms that I had. They're on lateral branches. I'll be getting berries off that. Got one down in there, but most of these are on the very end, the terminal end of these lateral canes. Again, same thing here. Now that's a cane that's coming up from the soil, but it's got 12, 15 berries on it. It's got 4 or 5. Now I hope you can see the viability of growing blackberries in containers. There's some that won't be long, about 2 or 3 days in this heat, and they will have turned. Those, same way with those. Once they turn red, you got about 2 or 3 days, depending on your heat, and they're gonna be black. And from all indication, I am gonna get a very nice summer, fall, ever-bearing type crop off these Primearkfreedoms this year. I mean, in the next 3 weeks or so. This is mid-June, my birthday, June 12th. And so I think they look good. And again, I hope I've made sense. I'm gonna refer anybody that asks questions in the future, I think I'll just refer them to this video, and hopefully I can edit it enough to where I make some dadgum sense. I hope so. All right. If not, I'm sorry. And if so, well, good. And we're gone.